I'm going to start the recording there, and then I will just be a minute or so looking for something to talk about.
Okay, okay. Well, okay. So this game, I like tried to get onto high ground, and I
Mhm.
just kept failing at it. Like I've been trying
Uh-huh. Okay.
to.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's something we can take a look at. All right. So
yeah.
come in here. Soldier starts shooting. We get a little bit of energy.
Yeah, I think I need to like learn how to like focus a target.
Hmm.
Because I'm like, oh, mercy. Oh, soldier, mercy, soldier. And then I get booped by the ball here.
Oh, unfortunate. Yeah, so I mean, like, definitely, learning how to stay on a target is a good thing. In that situation, I don't think is that big of a deal because like you swap targets when swapping targets is needed, and you don't when you don't. You swap targets when it's needed, like such as if you see somebody who you have a better opportunity to kill, so they're low, they're out of position. Let's say that the person you are trying to kill escapes from me, right? Like the Mercy, she flew across the map. Can't really continue to shoot at her if she's a mile away
Yeah,
from you, right? So
yeah.
in that case, swapping the soldier is perfectly fine, right? There's not a
Oh,
big
okay,
issue with that.
okay.
Now, if that was like it, no, I have had conversations with people where they'll swap between 10 different people for no reason in the middle of a fight, right? That's
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
All right. That is unfortunate. Just want to make sure that as you're coming up here, that you're keeping your eye on the fact that they do have a ball. So
Yeah.
potentially, not even walking up. Make sure you're like hugging this inside, which can make it like just so you have the furthest distance away from the edge as possible, and then also avoid jumping because that'll just make it easier for him to boop you
Oh,
as
yeah.
well.
Must ensure the payload's progress.
Okay, so once again, there we kind of are like not once again, but it's kind of the same concept as we were talking about the Mercy earlier. We
Yeah.
continue to look after them long after they're out of our range and out of our ability to do anything to them, and we're still
Yeah.
looking at them here. So now is where we probably want to shift our attention to maybe look at the people who are down here, or maybe look to like run up to high ground or something of the sort. In fact, like high ground might be probably a good option here since they're not really contesting high ground very heavily, right? They're all on the low ground. So here in the situation, we're just kind of looking after them long after we're able to actually do anything up there. Actually, so we got the bubble off on Monkey, which maybe is what we are trying to do there. So I guess it's different than us trying to shoot up at those characters, which is perfectly fine if we're trying to get the bubble off.
Get into position. Barriers on you. Go. Heroes never die. Do you even live? Don't hold back.
Nice energy we got going here. Okay.
How y'all doing? Where does it hurt? The payload moves towards our desired Barriers on you. Allow me to repair the
Monkey battle?
Very nice.
No, you can do better than that.
Yeah, this is when I kind of die here because the McCree gets nanoed.
Unfortunate. All right, so here we seem to be pressing a little bit too far in compare. Really, the big thing is that we just want to pay attention to where our team is and also where Cart is, right? All the way back here, and our team doesn't really follow us forwards, so we're getting a little bit aggressive here because now we're getting the territory where like okay, we have McCree with us, but then it's like a 3v1 or
Oh,
3v2,
yeah.
right? With our McCree here, so we want to be careful about that because we do end up pushing really far. Whereas what we probably could have just done is just peek the doorway, kill Mercy, maybe shoot at Ana because Ana's out in the open here, so we don't even have to chase McCree into the room over here. We can just stand
Yeah.
here, beam down Ana, and then we're safe, right? We can just get back to our team super easily. But we just end up pushing way too far, and then that means we're also not able to turn around and look at Ball, who's on point, etc. And then we end up dying, right? So
Yeah.
this is what you would call just overextension. We just go a little bit too far when the situation doesn't call for it and we don't have team support with us, and then we die again.
Yeah.
Just a scratch.
Okay, we get back into the fight here.
Barrier activated. This will heal you.
All right.
Promising. Some of
I'm
you.
noticing a few times where we are kind of right clicking unnecessarily so within our range. So
Mhm.
whenever you're right clicking, right, you usually just have two main times that you're using it. When you're out of range, right, of your left click, which is what we have been doing. You've been doing that when you're not just trying to beam them down to the left click. If you're out of range, you should be right clicking, since you obviously has a little bit more range on it. Now additionally, you can also right click if you are trying to burst someone down, and particularly that's going to be used when they're 1 HP. So, or sorry, low HP to clarify. So, like here, for example, when you see the May and the monkey are low, here we notice how we right click that second time, and then that finishes her off. Now, you can do a right click melee, and that'll burst their health down like really far, really fast, and then that means that when we do that, we're going to be able to basically secure the kill. Now we don't give Mei time to get away, to get healed,
Mhm.
to use ice block, etc. So it's really good to use it as a finisher. But you
Just
notice,
a
for
scratch.
example, how we right click when she's not low here. We right click when she's like full HP. And
Mhm.
then that means, so that right click maybe just wasn't worth it when we could have continued to beam her down, as it's just a more consistent form of damage. Now, there's other off situations where you can right click, such as if you're trying to boop somebody or disrupt their ability, something like that, right? So, like, McCree's trying to flashbang you, so you right click him to boop him around, right? Make it harder for him to hit you. That sort of
Mhm.
idea. But in general, here, there's a couple times where I'm noticing we're right clicking unnecessarily.
Okay.
Not very major
Promising.
thing, just a
But not
minor.
good enough. Damn.
Very nice bubble. Add in,
Damn.
you just because we're not fully aware of what his like health bar is here. I would add in, because it's just going very fast, and then also he might get healed. Just add in the melee as well, right? Like, so that's just going
Yeah.
to give you that extra burst when somebody's within range. So since McCree's right on top of you, the combo would be right click melee.
My
Okay.
ultimate is ready.
All right.
I am
Besides
ready.
that, good fight.
You have my thanks.
Hello. Hello there. Bomb ready.
Огонь по готовности.
All right. So we're coming in here.
Oh, yeah. There's a team around.
Right. So, this falls within the category of awareness, but how can
Mhm.
you actually pay attention to where your team is? Well, you have a couple things. Well, firstly, you have audio awareness of just listening to your surroundings and
Mhm.
where your teammates are. If you don't hear them, they're not with you. Um,
Okay.
excuse me one second. You just have to clear my throat a little bit because I you're starting to rasp for some reason.
That's okay.
So here, when we are pushing as well, before you put, like anytime before you push, you should probably check to see if your team's with you. So like right as we're about to push forward, it's like we're getting around this corner, or I think we came from this side where we're getting here. We just want to do a quick 360 scan, do it my team. If the answer is no, then you probably want to stop, and then that way you're stopping before you're ever pushing. And then secondly, you want if you see that your team is with you, then you can go, right?
Yeah.
Now, additionally, so firstly, there's the fact that we don't have any teammates. Secondly, there's the fact that this is kind of in the in between phase of fights. The fight is not started yet in this
Yeah.
instance, and typically and generally speaking, very rarely will you want to ult in between fights.
Yeah.
Typically, ults are best used for the start of the fight, and then you can use them they're okay to use during the mid fight, and then situationally you can use them at the end of a fight, and then like I said, very rarely will you want to use them in between fights, and that's kind of how that usually phases out. Certain ultimates work a little bit differently, like defensive ultimates, but as Zarya, not going to want to use it in between the fight, because then okay, we're going to get less follow-up. Yes, it maybe stagger them, but you're usually going to find more value out of using it to win the fight, because you stagger them and then they come in with more ults and they can win the next fight and stop you. Whereas if
Yeah.
you use your grab during a fight, then that counteracts the ultimates that they use, and then that's even more value. So ultimately, just in general, it's best if we were to wait till the fight developed more and then use it as the fight was beginning, rather than before it even began.
Mhm.
Surrender to my will.
When you are getting frozen by Mei, typically it's a good habit to get, again, very a little bit more minor, but good habit to get into, to right as you're about to get frozen, to turn around and look at the floor, as this will just make it much more difficult for them to hit headshots, because now every character on their team can just melt you in the head because you're standing still. Whereas if you turn around, that alters your head hitbox. And Zarya, that's not as much, right? You can still see her perfectly fine from the back. On other characters, it will be harder to see your head if you flip around. Additionally, if you look at the floor, this will again alter your head hitbox so that it is more difficult for them to hit your head, and therefore you would have a little bit more survivability. But the main issue there is just how far forwards we are.
Yeah.
Barriers on you.
Okay. Um, Bubbles in general, we had the one fight where we were high energy, which is really good. Since
Hmm.
then, I mean, like in general, besides that, like I think the one fight that we've had so far, we haven't been consistently high energy. So, it's important that we get high energy. Energy is very important because when we land good bubbles, not only is that our value as a tank, but it's also going to get us energy. Energy gets us damage. Damage gets us both kills and ult charge. Ult charge also gets us ults and kills. And then when you get a lot of kills, that means that you're winning more fights and therefore more games, right? So you're going to be doing a whole heck of a lot more when you have high energy versus low energy. So typically on Zarya, one of your first primary objectives of each fight is making sure that you're maintaining high energy so that you can actually have an impact during the fight. Here,
Hmm.
we go and bubble the monkey um, when there's just nobody, right?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
Right, so this is when it comes to using your bubbles, you want to make sure that you're bubbling when you or your teammates, or whoever you're bubbling, is firstly in the vicinity of an enemy. Secondly, an enemy is looking at them, right? They're not gonna,
Yeah.
if they're turning this way and walking this way, they're not gonna shoot at you. Thirdly, actually shooting at you, because they can be looking at you and in the vicinity of you and not gonna shoot at you if they know you're gonna bubble, or sometimes if it's like a skill shot character, they can very easily withhold from shooting at you, right? If it's like a hit scan McCree, because he can shoot at you once and then just stop shooting. But
Yeah.
projectiles, it's harder to do that, and other characters, it's harder to do that, right? So you want to make sure that really people are actually throwing damage at you and paying attention to that. Here, there's just no damage whatsoever, unless Monkey just happened to walk into a mine, which I don't think he does here.
Okay.
Barriers on you.
Help me. Here it comes.
Give me your best shot. That's more like
And
it.
then I don't have bubble.
All right, so once again, notice how we're a little bit far ahead of our team.
Yeah.
So we right now just want to be careful, because just looking at our team composition, what do you know the name of this team comp?
Double bubble.
Yeah, double bubble. There you go. Double bubble, right? In general, every time you're on a different team comp, you operate differently, right? Team comp dictates play style.
Hmm.
When we are on Ryan Zarya, it's gonna be very different than when we're on double bubble. I guess what would be a difference in kind of your I would say the main thing you're looking at, usually the big difference, is your positioning and your aggression. What would you think maybe is the difference between your positioning and aggression, Reinhardt Zarya versus Reinhardt Winston?
Well, Reinhardt, sorry, I think you could be a little more aggressive just because you have a shield, you have someone with you all the time on
Mm-hmm.
like where you're playing, and then
Yep.
Winston, like you kind of have to save your bubbles for when he dives in, so you have to play with the team more.
Yeah, so you pretty much nailed it right on the head there, right? Reinhardt, a little bit more aggressive. You can go in a little bit further because you have that extra person with you, and they keep Reinhardt's shield for you, and he can back up with you, right? You both kind of complement each other in that sense. Winston, he's diving in without you, right? You can't keep up with him, and then if you go in without him, then you're just one single tank versus, and you don't have that big old Reinhardt shield for you and big old
Hmm.
Reinhardt to help you. So therefore, a little bit more passive, a little bit further back than with a Reinhardt. Sorry. So here, this entire time so far, we've just been running in by yourself, and that is basically as if we were playing with a Reinhardt versus playing with a Winston. So,
Hmm.
paying attention to those differences between team comps. When it comes to paying attention to team comps, firstly, just make sure you're looking at what are we running at the very start of the game, but then additionally, you should be in the habit of, at a very minimum, pressing tab in between every single fight of the game, because that will give you give you information on, did we swap characters? Did they swap characters? Did what ultimates do we have to work with on our team, etc.
Mhm.
So that just be another thing. So here we're just way far forwards, and then that means that we end up, I think, probably dying.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Enemy reported. This
Okay,
is
so we
not
get res.
a second
Oh no,
chance.
monkey. He bugged out. Alright, good good bubble.
Get in there, Bob. Smoke him out of there. Get in
What is
there.
Mercy doing? I don't know. Okay, she's
I don't know.
damage boosting Bob.
I didn't really do much this fight. I just kind of ran around. I don't know. I'm like, oh, they're all dead.
Go. Is that all you've got?
Okay, so even in a situation like this, just be analyzing, okay, where's monkey jumping, who's on top of him. So, for example, it's very different if monkey's diving at people who know he's coming versus don't know he's coming, right?
Hmm.
If he's diving up here and the only person who can see him is a ball in ball form, no one's going to be shooting at him as he's approaching. So if we're bubbling him as he's approaching, we're going to have much less time remaining on that bubble while people adjust to look at him. Now, if you had like 3 people who are already staring at him as he's coming in, that's different, right? It's a different story,
Hmm.
because then bubbling him as he's going in is what you want to do, because then you're getting both the tanking and the energy as he's coming in, right? So pay attention to who's shooting at him, where they're at, who's looking at him, etc., right? And then that way we can get more than
Is
13 off
that
of it.
all you've got?
Yeah.
Melee, yep, there you go. Melee to finish. Just make that a habit. Really, really easy
Okay.
finisher.
Barriers on you. Go. The battle continues. I'm under attack. This is my will.
Okay, very minor thing, but just a thing. Watch how frequently you are spam jumping. Spam jumping is just going to be a bad habit to be in where you go jump, 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 jump. That's not going to be great because it makes you a easier target to headshot, as when you go up, you have to come down. That makes you very easily trackable because you know where their body is moving. So
Hmm.
avoid just going jump, jump, jump. You also lose a little bit of control over your mobility if you're doing that. So I would recommend to avoid it.
Ready for battle.
Make sure we're glancing around real quick just to see is anybody else in the mines who I need to bubble, because we kind of just like focus on our own bubble and look straight ahead rather than glancing around real quick to see does anybody else
Yeah.
need it. That again not only gets you tanking but then also gets you some energy as well. I did not know McCree could roll up there. That's handy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess you could use that for high noon. That'd be nuts if you use it for high noon.
Yeah.
Um I love looking for spots like that. That's awesome. Or I knew you could stand there. I just didn't know McCree could roll up there with his fly roll.
That's more like it.
All right, so once again, kind of in comparison to our team, slightly far forward. So the other main thing that I'm looking at here is our positioning. So in
Yeah.
general, good positioning is the usage of cover, whereas bad positioning is the absence of cover, right? Right now, we have a very big absence of cover where we start getting shot at and killed, right? And we're all the way back over here where the nearest cover is a mile away, right? Where are we going to run to get cover? Over here? Okay, well, now that's going to take us, what, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now we have cover and nobody can shoot at us, right? Or we could go for, I don't know, cart. That's even further. Go for over here, 1, 2, 3, right, 4, something like that, right? Once again, really far away. Now, let's say we position somewhere like here, where we have the exact same visibility over May, who is the character who we're trying to shoot at, we can peek and see these guys, and now it takes us half a second. Half a second to get behind cover, which is like 8 times faster than 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, like I said, good positioning, usage of cover, bad positioning, absence of cover, and it's covers all over the place. You have cart that acts as cover. You have random towers and stacks of things and objects. You have doorways that act as cover, rooms, high grounds all act as natural cover. They can see you, now they can't. See you, you crouch, now they can't. Right? Then yeah, it's just all over the place. Make sure you're looking for it. Slopes act as cover, so they can see you. You back down the slope. Now, oh, yeah, it's hard to maneuver. Now they can't, right? Because you back down the
Yeah.
slope, right? So there's just
Yeah.
it's all over the place. Make sure you're looking to use it, because then that ends up getting us killed. So now, if I'm not mistaken, this... Oh, did we make it out? Oh, for some reason they didn't shoot at us.
Yeah. I know.
Oh, now we die. Oh, no we don't.
No, we
Wait.
don't.
Oh, now we die. Okay.
Now we
So,
die.
yeah. We probably would have died like earlier if they were better. So that's just a thing where I would comment, just because a mistake isn't punished doesn't mean it's not a mistake, but then it even was punished later, right?
Yeah.
So make sure you're watching out for that. So far, we have died. Is this death number 4? Is that what this is?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that real quick. So it's not an atrocious death rate to have. It's right now we're like 5 minutes in ish with 4 deaths. Um, let's say that we keep up that current pacing. We would let's say this game in total takes 20 minutes. And then we take out a couples, take out 3. So let's say we have like 17 deaths at that rate, or 4 or 16 deaths, something like that, right?
Oh god. Yeah.
Um, 16 deaths. Let's go on the conservative side. Say 16 deaths.
Mhm.
16 deaths. Every single death, right? Sometimes people understand, yeah, deaths are bad, but sometimes they don't really think through why and how they're bad to the in-depth extent. So deaths are 10 seconds of respawning, and then also 10 seconds of walking back, which equates to roughly approximately 20 seconds per death.
Mhm.
Sometimes even longer than that. Now, that's if we do 20 times 17, or sorry, 16, we said 16, and then divide by 60 means that we would, during this game, have spent a portion of 5 minutes and 20 seconds dead, which is a lot of time if you think that through a little bit.
Yeah.
In that time, you could probably be getting off like 3 or 4 grabs and be getting a lot of kills and a lot of ability, a lot of tanking, and a lot of things actually happening. And you get none of that when you're dead. That's out of 5 minutes out of the 20 minutes of gameplay is a fourth of your game where you're doing nothing. So additionally, another thing to note is that it's not just you doing nothing. It's not a lack of value, it is negative value, because you are actively putting your team at a disadvantage, because when you die, you're making it so your team's more likely to lose that fight, right? They're putting them at a
Mhm.
disadvantage. So deaths are bad. Want to look to try to stay alive, and most of the deaths that we've seen so far were easily preventable, and those are the deaths that you want to look to avoid. Not all deaths are going to be easily preventable, but I'd say it depends on your current rank. As you go higher and higher, people get better and
Yeah.
better at forcing you to die. But like when you're working with like really low levels of gameplay, it's probably gonna be like 80% you could have done something. When you get
Yeah.
up to like top 500 level, then it's more like maybe 50% you could have done something about.
Mhm.
And then it's also that 50% is like very minor changes you could have made. But here, most of your deaths are probably gonna have something you could have majorly fixed. Now, 4 main reasons why people die. One, poor positioning. We just saw this here.
Yeah.
Lack of awareness. Then you have over aggression. We saw an over aggression death earlier, and we've seen a couple just over aggressions in general. And then there's also a misuse of abilities, such as if you use your bubble too early, or if you had it and you didn't use it, etc. Those are going to be your main causes of deaths. and you want to make sure you're paying attention to why did I die, so you can look to fix it, right? If you were out in the open, think through, like, if you saw that you died and you were staying smack dab in the open, think, okay, I should have used cover, and then I should have, be more specific, I should have maybe used that specific cover, right? I should have gone over to that corner, etc.
Yeah.
And then you want to make sure that you're looking to apply that in the future. So survivability, really important. Look to stay alive, and then that's going to allow you to do things during your game a lot more.
Hmm.
Just a scratch.
And
Um, yeah, that's all pretty decently unfortunate because our attention was on Hog. Um, maybe, yeah, I don't know, not like that one. I would say there's, in comparison, there's less we could have done. Maybe two things I'd maybe say was like check your corners, right? That, but we're
mhm.
also, we did have our attention on Hog, which is understandable, but just make sure you're doing a quick 360, check around you. Anytime you walk in a new place, you should probably, this is just called corner checking. So you walk in on high ground, instead of just staring this way and walking through, you want to do a quick left right check. Left right, we're good. Okay. That
Okay.
way, yeah, that way you know that there's nobody there, and you're not gonna get snuck up on. This is just a good habit to get into. So you come up here on high ground rather than just immediately turning right side, unless it's like in the there's some cases where it's just like, okay, there's such a low chance that it's not even worth it, right? Like if you know that the whole fight's happening all the way down there and nobody's up here, then you should be fine. But if you know that there's like a decent chance somebody might be there, then it's a good habit to check, right? So check, look over here, right? That sort of idea,
Hmm.
right? Check, then we peek, that sort of thing. And then we could also maybe have stood in the, we didn't have to keep walking at Hog, we could have stayed in the doorway, but that's not as major.
Give me your best. Огонь по
Make
готовности.
sure that when you're using, so this projected is fine, right? We're using it on Ash because we see she's peeking, she's taking some damage. When you use your own,
Give me your
make sure
best
we,
shot.
two things. Firstly, make sure that you're exposed so that you are able to take the maximum amount of damage, right? Here only May can see us, right?
Yeah.
So push up to the doorway. This way everybody can see you and everybody can shoot at you.
Hmm.
And then that's the main thing. And we also back up, right? So we kind of use it and then we back up even
Огонь по
further as well.
готовности.
And then really nobody, the bubble mainly just gets wasted, and we're low energy. So noting as well that we've just
Hmm.
been low energy in the vast majority of these fights, besides like one fight where we high energy. We've just been low
Yeah.
energy each fight, and that just again greatly reduces our ability to actually do things.
Yeah.
Be careful about like
Give me
getting
your best.
this
Огонь по
aggressive when we
готовности.
don't have bubble available. Let's see. Okay, so we do most of our team. Though, do note that you're like still down 2 people, so it might be a good idea to continue to wait, especially
Oh
if
yeah.
you're down a DPS and a tank. So you're not going to be doing a ton of damage into this, and we're also not very high energy. We kind of step out a little bit, which isn't great, but we get away.
That's the power of attraction.
Once again, probably just left click those. Left click it should be your go-to when you're within range
Okay.
of it.
Okay.
Ready to battle. Don't be
Yep,
shy.
nice bubble.
Hit me.
Just because left click's your more consistent form of damage. Alright, we
I'm
got it.
the champion. Now see what I can do.
Yes, right now we should be pushing. This is... Oh, just look to soak up shots like that. Like right now, our objective is... Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so slightly delayed on our bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Besides that, noting that we're bubbling the McCree who actually gets to cover in time.
Oh
Right?
no.
Barriers on
So
me.
watching those two things, that's all. That is very unfortunate that McCree's behind there. I didn't even notice that he's up there. But besides that, note that, let's say before McCree shows up, our objective is what you call just maintaining energy, because if we just sit around in between the fight, then our energy goes from 60 and dwindles down to 20 by the time the fight actually starts. and you want it to be starting at 80, not starting at 20, because then you don't need to focus on your energy as the fight's beginning, and you can use your bubbles for pure tanking, and when they're actually needed rather than using them to acquire energy. So that would be your objective in between that fight there. And so far, I haven't seen. We also haven't seen like a ton of in between fights because we end up. I don't. Yeah, there just haven't been like a lot of those. But besides that,
Get in
we
there.
just want to make sure there we were just trying to get some energy.
Yeah.
All right, here you can probably just be like if we're trying to so once again, if we're trying to acquire energy, you can go in this doorway and peek and make them shoot at you. That's your objective as Zarya, is to not you're one looking for situations to bubble, but then you also want to make them shoot at your bubbles, right? You can do
Yeah.
that by getting a little bit extra aggressive. You're not gonna sprint into their team, but you're going to make you're gonna make it yourself visible. You can shoot at them because this will draw their attention if they're not already looking at you. Stand still, because when you stand still, that makes it easier for them to hit you. And then make sure you're staying here for the full bubble duration. Here we bubble after we back around the corner.
Uh,
Right?
yeah.
And then we
We
peek, and then
need
that
to
just
get the
means that
payload
by the time the
moving.
bubble fades, we didn't get
Don't
anything
hold
out of it,
back.
right? And then
Yeah.
we're coming into this fight at 10 when we maybe could be coming into the fight at 50, right?
Yeah.
60 seconds remaining.
Slightly ahead of our team, right? We also don't have bubble. Additionally, we might talk about something in a moment here.
Okay.
But trying to maybe look for better situations to discuss it in.
Go. That tickles.
Okay. Not. Yeah. I'm just going to assume that we're not aware that there's a hog right behind us. Right. So, in terms of hog being right inside of us, we have the fact that I'm pretty. Yeah, so I don't think we can see him here, but we can definitely hear him. Oh, and then
Mhm.
we can see him, right? You can see him
Oh
peek
yeah.
out there. Um, but then the big thing is you can hear him. So audio awareness. Let's talk about that for a second. Sound.
Okay.
Everybody has different headset volumes, so this is subjective, but just make sure it's loud enough. Music.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure you can hear stuff, right? Music
Yeah.
volume. I'd recommend turning off or down, as this can clutter with your audio.
Yeah.
Um, and then this is probably the biggest one here, is check your headset software to see if you have your surround sound enabled. If it is not an option because you don't have software, or it doesn't have an option for it within your software, then go and turn
Mhm.
it on in game, which is Dolby Atmos for headphones, which is the in-game version of sound that surrounds you, which will give you better sound that surrounds you.
Okay.
Then additionally, what really makes up good audio awareness is making sure that you're actively listening to footsteps and gunshots and abilities and ultimates. And here we get, I think, 2 or 3 of those. Because we hear his footsteps, and he's shooting at people, and I think he might be using take a breather in it. Yeah, he takes a breather. You can see that on the top left. So therefore, we probably could hear him if we were paying attention. Now, apologies, I do also have my volume low here because I like to hear myself talk when I coach, so
Yeah.
I do that a bit lower. So maybe you couldn't hear that.
Go. That tickles.
My will.
Okay,
On
nice
the
shots.
escorting the
Good
payload.
usage of like cover there and going in and getting kills. Right click to finish. That's good.
Not good. Zarya activated. Don't be shy. Огонь по готовности.
All right. So we grab here. This is
Огонь по
not a
готовности.
bad idea because though you could say that this is maybe, I guess, yeah, this is maybe, you could say that it's maybe not the start of the fight, but at the same time, I would say this is good because you're close enough to capping this situation. This is one of those rarer situations where using your grab right now would be perfectly fine, because if you kill these guys, then they're not able to come. You stagger them, right? They're not able to come and contest as a whole team when they want to be able to come and contest. Though the issue is that we do like I think we grab and then we we turn around, we grab, and we turn around again. Which I think
Yeah.
we're maybe checking to see if we have our team with you. But if you grab, you probably still want to be shooting into it, like maybe at
Yeah.
the same time as backing up or so.
Feel the gravity.
Okay, nice bubble.
Keep moving.
Maybe our second bubble was wasted, so we get that bubble on
Mhm.
Mercy. Note that when you get up to high charge, when you're high energy, so this could be like it depends on the situation, but like usually I'd say like 70 plus ish. When you're like 70 plus on energy, if you use a bubble, you're not going to be getting the maximum value out of it, because you can only get 30% out of it rather than the 40% out of it. Or if you're 80, you can only get 20%. So you only get
Mhm.
half the value out of it for the terms of getting energy. So when you are high energy, you probably, and also it's just not as necessary because you're already high energy. So when you're high energy, your objective with bubbles is to primarily swap to looking only for tanking bubbles. So when people actually need it, because they're low, they're in danger, um they're about to get, you're blocking an ability or an ultimate, etc., right? Those types of bubbles that are actually providing them with tanking value, right? So for example, here the Mercy one that was providing her with tanking value and getting you energy. Here we bubble a Zarya, and like, do we need tanking? Well, we're inside of our team and there's a monkey in front of us, right? And we have cover and they're not near us, so probably not. We're not in danger, so this bubble, I'd probably say, doesn't get its maximum value, when we could save it for when we want to get aggressive and push or something of that sort.
Yeah.
Into the iris.
Heroes never die.
And
Not good.
drop.
Never trust an object.
Okay, little bit of target priority there.
Mhm.
Where not sure if it's just because we don't notice her, or if because like this gets into target priority of just real quick, because I don't think it's been a major issue for you, but just shoot at the things that are easiest to kill, because those things are gonna die. And in general, tanks are the hardest things in the game to kill. They have 2 to 3 times the health of other characters. They have armor. They have shields. They have tanking abilities. And here, for
Mhm.
example, we have the exact same, we have the equal opportunity to shoot at Mercy or Winston, and Mercy's healing up Winston, and we shoot at the Winston, right? So
Never
Yeah.
Mercy's right in our face, right? Mercy's gonna die much easier than Monkey, and then we shoot at the Monkey, right? And then we
Yeah.
keep shooting at the Monkey, and we can swap to Mercy here, because Monkey's fully HP. Right? This is an example, and Mercy's even low HP, down some HP. This is an
Mhm.
example of where you can swap targets if you see a better target, right? So
Okay.
then we stay on the Monkey, and then we bubble when there's nobody on top of us, and we bubble McCree when nobody's looking or shooting at him, right? Like, only one alive is to shoot at us is Monkey, and then he's not even near us, right? So then those get
Yeah.
wasted. Okay, nice shot. Then we do swap our attention. So this is where I'm saying, like, okay, you are doing a decent job of this, because we do swap over to both of those squishies.
go to position. Your best shot.
Okay. Once again, noting that we're bubbling ourselves before before Hog even turns around. We're bubbling him.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine if once he does turn around, because then look how much we get out of that. But he wasn't even looking at us yet, so whereas you could have pressed it after he looked at you, you know.
Yeah.
All right.
Surrender to my will.
So I think that last little bit of the fight actually went pretty, or this last fight went a lot better than some of the others. I didn't though we didn't die, obviously, and we were high energy, and we used and our positioning was a bit good. Bit good. That's
Big
I mean bit good.
good.
All right, good grab. Grabs in terms of landing them on people have been looking really good. Now the timing for one of them was off. This timing was good. The landing it on multiple people was good, especially when there's not even a lot of people to land it on here.
Escorting the kill.
All right. Overall, much better last fight. And then therefore that pushed our survivability up a little bit, right? Not as bad of a
Yeah.
death rate.
Yeah.
All right. That's the type of fight you want to look to like emulate throughout the gameplay. All right.
Bring it.
Watch shooting at her bubble when she already has it up, right?
Yeah.
You only ever want to shoot at a Zarya's bubble in general if you know that you can kill the person underneath it, even if you shoot at it, right? Because then you can
Yeah.
break the bubble and continue to shoot at them, right? So if they're low, if they're out of position, etc., then you can go, okay, Zarya's 1 HP, let me break the bubble and kill her, right? But if
Mhm.
she's gonna get out here, then there's no reason to shoot at her bubble for free. And then once again, we're bubbling as there's one character who, one Zarya who has 0 energy looking at us, who turns around, right? So not gonna get
Yeah.
a lot out of that. Whereas now, like, look at the difference. Like, if we saved it for an extra second, and then we like let's say we stood here in this doorway for 2 seconds, shot some right clicks at them. Hanzo and Monkey come over to investigate, and then they shoot at us, and we get that because we shoot, and then do they look over? Hanzo looks over, right?
Yeah.
So note that we drew his attention. They turn, they look at us, we bubble, right?
Yes.
And then that way we're actually getting some bubble value and some energy, and then that increases a lot of our ability to do things. That was a decent bubble. Oh, sniped.
Check out this gun I will make real.
Okay, let us briefly. Oh,
Go.
I missed what happened.
Check out this
I don't
gun
I don't
will
know.
make real.
You don't know?
I'm-
Go. That's more like it.
All right, so let's discuss real quick, as I like to go over this with everybody before we get into the end of the session, of the application process. So how do you look to work on the things that we've actually been talking about? So let's, for example, take survivability. So you're looking to work on survivability.
Mhm.
So maybe it might seem a bit vague, like, okay, yeah, I know I'm dying. How do I not die? Right? Like, that's
Yes.
how do I work on it? So you work on the thing that you're trying to work on the exact same way that you work on anything else that you're trying to improve on in game or out of game, and that is that you're going to make sure that you're actively focusing on it while you're playing, right? And that means you're not going to autopilot, you're not going to just play to play, and contrary to popular belief, you're not going to purely play to win, as when you purely play to win, you end up stagnating, whereas when you play to improve, then you actually end up winning. Now, what
Yeah.
that looks like within your gameplay is you're going to be thinking to yourself, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, stay alive, positioning, positioning, awareness, awareness. Don't run into their team, right? Giving yourself a constant stream of reminders to think about survivability of staying alive. And then, therefore, when you think and pay extra attention and put effort into staying alive, you'll probably stay alive more. And when you do that for a long enough period of time, that will form it as a positive habit. Once it forms as a positive habit, then you can move on to something else to work on because it just comes naturally now. You don't need to put as much effort into it. And then one final thing is that I would recommend don't try to do everything all at once. That will get
Okay.
overwhelming. We talked about a lot of things. Instead, focus on one category of things or 1 to 3 smaller things within a category because sometimes they can get a bit big.
All right.
So that all makes sense, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now we can keep
Give
going.
me your best shot. I'm under stock the payload. I have loaded. Ready for battle. Behind you. Hello. Go.
Right, so here we bubble. They shoot at us. We back up. That's fine because there are a lot of people there. And then we bubble the Mercy, but then I'd be thinking, okay, well, against 2, right? Again.
Yeah.
So watching for those because then you just see how that really adds up when it's happening again and again and again.
Teleporter online. We move quickly.
Just for reference, in case you weren't aware, you can climb up that without you needing to
Uh,
rocket jump.
yeah. It's
Was
this part. It's this part where I tried to get onto like the other one that Hans was standing on, and it just
yeah.
didn't work.
Mm. Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
That just looks like we just didn't press the jump button. Um, but yeah, in this situation, like you can again, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but you can climb up the boxes just by standing on that little
Yeah.
thingy box. Smaller box, you're up. You can any character in the game can jump across this gap as well.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I was so lost. How do you get up there?
Yeah.
Because I think I tried again, and then it just doesn't work. I tried to get to the monkey.
Oh, yeah. We just weren't pressing the jump button, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to time it right. Is how you do that. All right. Were we intentionally trying to drop for the? Okay, maybe because we heard group up with me. I wouldn't put ourselves in bad positioning to assist the Moira because we kind of here I'd say we're in a good spot here from the high ground.
Hmm.
We can look down and beam down Torb very easily. If you wanted to, maybe we can come up here and then now we can see Moira and still have high ground and still see people. But high ground's fantastic.
Yeah.
I think you understood that because you said earlier in the game that you tried to take high grounds, right? But high ground's great, and part of taking
Okay.
high ground is making sure you're not randomly dropping from high ground. Um,
Yes.
yeah, that's just part of it. So you want to make sure that you are looking to maintain it if you're up there, because there's a lot of advantages that come along with it, such as people can't reach you. You have it all access cover. You have better visibility and off angles, but there's we don't have to go super in depth on it. Just in general, here we don't maybe need to drop because we could have just shot them from the high grounds.
Get in there.
Overloading.
What we hope to witness. Heroes never die. Reality bends to my will.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
Acknowledged. Так точно. Acknowledged.
Okay, when coming out of spawn, probably take high ground. This gives again, this gives us all the advantages, and also it takes the additionally it gives the high ground advantage to our team as well, and then also means that we can rip that advantage away from the enemy team because that's also good for them. So we want to take it away from them. So there's a
Yep.
probably want to just be coming up to high ground where Sigma's at when we're coming out of spawn, pretty much in the majority of situations, but not all.
I wanted to bubble the sink here, and then he didn't show himself because I know the tire was coming for him.
Oof.
Yeah.
But if we're over with him, then
Yeah.
it becomes a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
Um.
Rip.
Okay. So here, okay, we bubble. I think we're trying to as well. No, we walk in a little bit far. So
Yeah.
we notice that we are down our sing here. Why don't we just talk? We're running out of time. Speed run really quick.
Yeah.
Okay, aggression scaling. This is basically a tool to learn when should we be playing at which levels of aggression. Basically, you think of your aggression on a scale. 50% is your neutral, 100% is your super aggressive, 0% is your super passive. So you pretty much come into every single fight at 50%, and you adjust upwards with advantages and opportunities, and you adjust downwards with disadvantages and a lack of opportunity. Or sorry, not lack of opportunities, lack of resources. So let's
Hmm.
me define a couple of those. Advantages are going to be things such as you are up kills. You get a kill, you go from 50 to 60. You get 2, you go from 60 to 70, and so forth. Same thing with disadvantages. Disadvantages are basic something like being down player. So here, Sigma's dead. We go down from 50 to 40. Sigma gets rest. We go back up to 50. Now there's a lot of other things that go into that. You can get a lot more in depth, but we're running out of time. So
That's okay.
yeah, so opportunities would be something like you see somebody's low HP. So somebody's low, somebody's out of position. You want to get really aggressive to go and finish them off. And then additionally, and then a lack of resources is going to be if like your resources on your character are going to be like your health bar, and on Zarya you have like 2 things, maybe 3 things. I would say, right? You have your health. If you have no health, you should be if you have like 1 HP, you should be at like 0, right? Just because you don't have
Mhm.
that resource. Bubble, if you don't bubble, you're probably gonna drop from like a 50 to like a you're gonna drop down a little bit, maybe from like a 50 to a 35 or so, right? Just you don't have that resource. Additionally, I might say energy is a resource, though I might say that that is an advantage possibly because you'd maybe be at like 50% or so, and then you adjust up if you get more energy because you can get a little bit more aggressive, you can win your duels, etc. So just make sure adjusting on these things. Note that you should not be locked into them, so you're not going to come into a fight and then stay at 100% for the next 10 seconds. That's not how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
It's going to be very fluctuant. You might come into a fight, have start at 50%, then you see an opportunity, you go up to 100%, and then you get shot and you're 1 HP and you go down to 0. All that happened
Okay.
within 1 second, right?
All right.
So it's very fluctuant. It's going to be all over the place, and there's a lot of things to pay attention to, but when you start working on it, it will all happen within a snap of a fingers, where you'll be able to, take a snapshot of the fight and go, okay, I should be this right now, right?
All right.
So it seems slightly overwhelming, but once again, like if you think about it, it'll become less so as you get better at it. So that is your basics on that. Yeah, it can get more complex, but we're going along now. So we are now going to do a quick review and then wrap up. Sorry, and then go over the main points of the session and then wrap up from there. Um,
Okay.
Yep. So during this game, we were on Zarya and Zarya.
Together,
Bubble
we are
usage, put some
strong.
effort into them. This is like a large part of how you're actually able to do things. This is how you carry, get your value on Zarya, right? This is how you have an impact on the game rather than just existing, having high energy and actually getting kills and doing things, right?
Mhm.
And we spent a good chunk of the game not high energy, and you can actually see a correlation from the times where we actually had an impact in the fights that we won where we were high energy, right? Like the last fight of the attack and when there was another fight of the attack where we had high energy and we actually got kills and we did things and then we won, right? Whereas a lot of the other fights kind of slowly dragged on because we didn't have that impact. So use your bubbles,
Mhm.
use them when people are actually looking and shooting at you or your teammates, right? Not when they're nowhere near you,
Weak.
and you're bubbling your teammate when there's nobody shooting at them, etc. When you're using your own personal bubbles, don't bubble
Yep.
like around a corner, right? Don't run away with it. Even halfway through, don't run away with it unless you really are in danger.
Yep.
Make sure that you're be visible. Like if they're not looking at you, shoot a couple times at them, make them look at you. Bubble, stand still, and then I backed up a little early there, but once it's done, then you back up, right?
Yep.
Then overall, I'd probably say the bubble usage probably went to a medium high priority for you to work on, though I'd say maybe a lower end of that.
Yep.
Then moving on, you have ultimate usage. Ults, just make sure that you're not using it in the in-between portion of fights. Besides that, your ultimates looked pretty solid, right? It's just in general, start a fight, you use them at the start of fights. It's okay to use them at mid fights, and then situationally use them at the end of fights, and then rarely will you use them in between fights, right?
Yep.
So that besides that, they all look pretty good. So I would probably say put at like a low to medium priority.
I'm just getting warmed up.
Then moving on to mechanics. Make sure we're not randomly right-clicking when we're within range of left click. Left click's gonna be much more consistent source of damage. Though you can right-click to finish off, and in fact, when you're close, you probably want to right-click melee because that bursts
This
down
is
their health
fun.
really fast. And then that means that they stay dead and don't have a chance to get away and whatnot.
Take the pain.
So I'd recommend doing that. And then once you get far away, though, you don't want to right-click to finish because it's so much of a travel time,
Promising, but
and
not
it's
good
gonna be
enough.
less likely to actually land on them. So I would still left-click them to finish at that range, and then once you get out of
Mhm.
range, then you right-click again. Besides that, little tiny thing was target priority. Shoot at the easy things to kill, not tanks, right? I forgot to mention this, but you can look at them. You can look at tanks. It's not to say you never do. You look at them when they're low, when they're out of position, when they're the only thing you can look at. Those are times where you look at tanks.
Yep.
Overall, Mechanics, probably a low to medium, not a massive deal.
Okay.
Moving on to your positioning. Positioning, make sure you are using cover. Good positioning is usage of cover. Bad positioning is the absence of cover. Take high grounds, stay high grounds. Don't randomly drop if it's not needed. It's not, again, not to say that you never drop from high grounds, but drop when it's needed, not when it's not, right?
Mm-hmm.
That way you keep the advantage if at all possible. Take high grounds whenever possible. Rotate there in between fights. Besides that, position a little bit safer when you're not like on right heart, right? Don't sprint
Yeah.
into their team. Sometimes we got a little bit over aggressive. Over aggression is kind of a form of positioning because it's just running into their team, right? And that's out of position. So watch that. Overall, maybe like a medium priority for you to work on.
Okay.
Then your awareness slash aggression, because
I
these
know you
two
can
are
do
basically,
better
you could
than that.
make them their own categories, but they're so intertwined, they're basically one. Um, Pay attention to what's going on around you. What's your HUD looking like? What's what's happening with your team? Where are they at? Make sure before you're getting aggressive that you're glancing around. Do I have my team with me? I do. Okay, let me go. I don't. I wait. Right. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure you're just watching generally where are they at. What's their how much in danger are they? Do they actually need my bubble? Are there people shooting at them? Right. Um, Pay attention to where the enemy team is at. What's just generally going on around you. And then that's about it there. Aggression scaling we just talked about. Make sure you're just paying attention to what the heck's going on around you. 50% neutral, 100% aggression, 0% passive, right? You
Yep.
just up with advantages and opportunities. You go down with disadvantages and a lack of resources. And that's pretty much it. Overall, probably just a medium, maybe a higher end of a medium. I guess, yeah, because you did end up running a lot without your
Yeah.
team. So I'd say, uh, I guess I don't know. It's in me. I would say. I guess I would put that at a medium high, maybe like again a lower end of a medium high, somewhere in between that. And then finally survivability. Make sure you're looking to stay alive. Right, deaths are bad.
Yep.
20 seconds per death. Four things that cause deaths: poor positioning, lack of awareness, over aggression, and then misuse of abilities. And then yeah, just pay attention to those. Overall, that probably went. It was much better that like after that first little bit, so it got better as we went along. Probably higher end of a medium, right? Something like that.
Yep.
So put that all in order.
Do you
Number
even live?
one probably came out to very close between I guess awareness slash aggression came out as number one, but very very
Yep.
close. And then number two was ability usage. Number three was survivability. Number four was positioning. Number five was honestly you could probably just tie up the last two,
Yeah.
ult usage and mechanics.
Check out
And
this
that's about it.
gun.
Do you have any questions about anything?
No, I just wanted to thank you for everything.
Yeah, my pleasure. No problems whatsoever.
Like that was so helpful. I've been watching so many tutorials on YouTube, but actually breaking down what I need to improve on really helps.
Yeah, glad to hear it. It's what I do. All right, so I'm gonna stop